and test it this morning from your seat and get that QR code so you can load up the files that we have. Because as we go through this afternoon, our objective is to give the room a lot of tools to be able to work with afterwards. For those of us who work together, much of this we will be picking up on and working on as we go forward. And anybody in the room that's not a client that wants to dig in some more with us, obviously we're here to have those conversations. So I'm going to turn off the page. Did everybody get it? James?
The IT guy.
The IT guy can.
Leave it to the technology.
The IT guy, I know.
James, do you need us to help you?
That would be great. I told you all, don't scan these things. We saw those pictures, we got to believe.
See if you're good.
All right, so it all starts here. Point of power. I can't go through any presentation without talking about this. So there's two ways to be, right? When it's all said and done. Right? We talk about it as above the line, above the point, and below the point. Below the point, those are those individuals that when they're looking at a situation, they find blame, right? They create excuses, or they live in denial. We're not finger pointing here in the room. And so we've all those people have been, right? You can be this way all the time. We know people like that. But all of us are this way sometimes. There's something, and ultimately, we ended up being better. Here's a little tip. Every time you use the word but, you're below the point. Every single time. So think about how many times the word but is in a sentence that you're communicating about. Every time you come up with a reason why you didn't do something, you're below the point. We all do it. So the most important thing is how long you stay below the point. And so the idea of presenting it here is as we go into the hiring, retaining, and firing part of this afternoon, how often are you going to catch yourself in blame, excuses, and denial in any of those situations, right? Because that's what we're talking about. Above the point is ownership, accountability, and responsibility. It's the or, right? That sits above the back wall of they're right behind my camera. Every time somebody starts going excuse-driven, I just go like this, right? The point? What's that? With the other fingers? That's only with you. Right? So, ownership, accountability, responsibility. Why is it an or? I ask this question all the time. Why is it an or? What can you do with an or? Right? You can row in any direction you want. What can you do with an or when you're going upstream? You can hit people. You can still row forward, just slower. Right? That's that point from this morning about prioritization and really being focused. So, right? If we're in bed, we're given reasons. We're the victim. This guy. That is not Joe, Bill. But if we're above the point, we get results. We're the victor. I do a whole presentation on this on lost clients. Right? So every time you were supposed to be doing business with someone and you don't, there's a whole routine you can take yourself through as it relates to why am I no longer doing business with that client? And it's pretty terrific if you post-mortem every person, every business that you were doing business with, and you don't. And if you can get up here and take ownership, accountability, and responsibility for the things you could have done differently, then all of a sudden you've got new strategies for the future. So this is our mindset carrying into this afternoon. I love when I go places and just see them. Or, like Bill, I had a note to him the other day about something, and he literally took a picture of this, which I'm assuming is in your office, and sent it back to me. That was his response to a response. And I think that's terrific, right? All of us calling each other out for at any point where we end up above or below the point. So, point of power. That's our mindset carrying into this afternoon. So we're going to talk first about hiring. And I talked over the cash register ringing, right? That was the cash register ringing, that little noise. First phase of effective leadership in small business is how do we hire, right? So we're in a new world. Who's been trying to fill a position that's important for a long time? Mark, Piper, Wayne, right? Bill, he raised his hand. He should be. More hands back there, right? There's a lot to think about now. And there's a lot of antiquity that this younger generation is looking for. So as you kind of go through here, you guys will have the whole deck as we go forward. You'll see, I want calm. I want mission driven. You know, I'm only working for a company that's mission driven. I want all this stuff, right? And maybe Paula can help us with, right? I want wellness support. I want flexible hours and remote working. Who's struggling with that in their business? Trying to find the balance of giving somebody remote versus not. I want to be empowered. I want development and training. I want volunteering. I want, right? It's all part of the hiring phase. The most important thing is, as an employer, you decide what you're going to give, and then just be out there communicating, this is what I'm going to give. So you should be aware of what the candidates are looking for as you're out there. But once you decide, and then just make sure you don't draw on candidates that want something that you don't offer. If you don't think remote work is good for you and your business, don't tell a candidate you're about to hire, yeah, we can work towards that. And then never work towards it because you don't think it's the right thing for your mom. Just to get that particular candidate, which we see happen all the time. The other thing, I used to follow a rule that I'm not as good at now, but I'm trying to get better at, which is, what are you doing and where are you spending your time as it relates to your next future hire? So who here knows who they want to hire next, if they think about it? Show my hands. There should be more hands. So think about from this morning, right, what that next hire is going to be to grow your business. Is it sales? Is it a producer? Whatever it may be. Make sure that you are spending time in those spaces with good frequency. So the idea is, when you're looking at your calendar on a weekly basis, right, on a monthly basis, are you meeting potential future hires and future candidates? Because you can structure this out. So there was a moment in my previous career where once a month I was always meeting 3 different levels of leaders to make sure that I knew all the talent in the marketplace, because there's one thing you can't control entirely, which is when someone leaves. You can do your best to try to retain everything, but then one day you walk in and your most important person is gone. If you're doing this really well, right, and you're always out there in the marketplace meeting the next potential replacement for your most important people, well, then your gap of not having that person will be a lot shorter than if all of a sudden you're gone and somebody's gone and you're like, oh, what am I going to do now? Right? You end up in a tough situation. So, those of you who work with us for a while know about our hiring steps. And this is something that I just want to pause and kind of share with the balance of the room. Simple 4-step hiring process. Number 1, do what it takes to attract candidates. Number 1 issue I see. I want somebody, but I don't want to spend any money finding them. So I'm just, I'm going to like put it on a carrier pigeon and hopefully think that it lands in the right person the day that they happen to be looking up. You got to invest in hiring to do it right. Some of you need to use some sort of placement person, even though we don't want to do it. Other people just can get it accomplished through Indeed or some of the other tools. But first thing you want to do is decide, using all the technology and all the tools out there, what is it I really need, and how am I going to find that person? The second level of this is screening. We've got some people in the room that have started to do this pretty well. Like Piper and her team in the back, when they're looking to hire, they bring in a bunch of people, they screen them on Zoom, she uses part of her team to do it, and what that does is it allows the best to rise to the top. So the idea here is, if you're looking to fill a position within your company, you go get as many people to apply as possible, and then you start scheduling group interviews. You can do group interviews in person, you can do them on Zoom. But the best people will rise to the top. Those are the people that you start to do the in-depth interview. So we're trying to save your time as it relates to the candidates. So come through, you do that, screening, the best people come out. Then we do our DISC assessment, and then as we talk in a little bit, we'll go through how you utilize sort of DISC to be able to interview and dig through people. And then ultimately make your decision to hire. All right? So this is your first tool. There's a whole 2-pager in here of how you should be hiring as you go forward. So when you go to the hiring folder, you'll see there's a 4-step hiring process. All the steps that you would follow when you're getting ready to hire the next person. Questions? Comments of people who have used this process? Exhausting. Yeah. But What do you have now?
I have a hope.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hope with a good person,
We'll
right?
wait for your retention slide and then we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Arif,
Yes.
I would say you made me do this recently, and the person I wanted to hire for a long time, I didn't get to hire because you made me do that and have three, you made me have three,
Yeah.
and I didn't hire, right? And it's who I thought I wanted and needed and wanted to return. That's all.
Helps you filter.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard. And a lot of times you meet somebody, you meet one person, and during the interview, if anybody's had this experience, you say, I don't know if they're really the right fit. Somewhere around the middle of the interview, you go, I think I might be able to do this person. And then you get towards the end, you're like, all right, yeah, and there's nobody else. So I guess I'll just give it a shot. Which really is like the worst thing to do, because what comes next? Lots of investment of time and money, right? Onboarding this person. What if they're really not a good fit and they start impacting the culture of your organization, right? So there's a saying that I've always stood by, which isn't the most politically correct. I can say whatever I want now, which is a hole in your organization is better than an asshole, right? When it's all said and done. And it's something to really pay attention to. Let the open job be open. Don't fill it because you have to fill it, because that can create more problems. All right, so another tool that's in there. So a lot of you understand we have an interview guide. So that's also in the hiring folder. But these here are the automatic DQ questions. What do I mean by that? If anybody gets any one of these questions not to your liking, be done. Just be done. And shorten the interview. Don't go through the whole extent of the interview. Because if they come and they can't tell you how they envision contributing to your organization, or they clearly didn't check you out and know enough about who you are or what your company does, that's the interest level they have in the job. So don't be fooled by that. That's not somebody that you want. This is the one I hone in on because I can't read all 5 questions in the standard schedule. So I'm going to come on this one, which is, why did you leave your last position? Which is a great question to ask. Or, why are you looking to leave your current position? What you're looking for is how that person answers that question. The reasons don't really matter. It's which direction their finger is pointing. If their finger is pointing out at their current employer or all the people they work with, you can damn well expect that their finger is going to be pointing at you in the near future if you hire them. If they come back and they talk about other things that take responsibility, if they demonstrate some level of being above the point, well, now you have somebody that you're having a good qualified conversation with. So I've worked hard on these questions for years, trying to sort of refine what can be the best thing we have to really disqualify somebody right away. I don't think there's over-disqualification here. I think it's sort of right on point. So if you run people through these 5, and they do great, now we dig deeper, right? So this is sort of the behavioral, sort of top line, who am I interacting with? Once you get past here, you start digging into the nuts and bolts of what the position is and how to do it. So again, as you scanned on that QR code, the whole interview guide lives inside here. The first 5 questions don't get edited because they're built this way on purpose. All the questions afterwards become yours to sort of tweak, right? To be able to use to say, all right. And you're not using all of them because there's probably 40 or 50 questions in there. So you don't have to ask 70, 50 questions in an interview where you probably won't work for you. All right, so any questions on that? Okay.
Arif,
Yes.
question. How do you handle if you feel like they're just not able to articulate the right answer, but deep down feel the right answer?
If they can't articulate it, but you feel they have the right answer, I think you keep digging, right? So I mean, one of the most important parts of interviewing is not you talking, it's you doing what? Listening. And so if you're really listening well, then you just dig another layer deeper. Help somebody get to where they want to go. So, I mean, remember, you're really looking to disqualify or qualify someone here. So if you're close, don't be afraid to dig. Don't be afraid to just kind of ask another level, another layer of a question.
Number 4, is this, like, that's kind of a 6 for me, but what's your point? I assume what your point is on that. Is it like, well, my organization works like in a highly structured, high supervision, well, you're not right for us, or is it like, because like on disc profile, you know, as leaders, you kind of fall into one way and your organization might operate based really largely on your personal disc profile, which means some other things you aren't as good at, which would trickle down to how your organization operates. And if you need someone that fits some of that other stuff, and you need that in your culture, but because their disc profile, how they want to work and operate best isn't how you're doing your business, but maybe you should, that one's hard. I don't know if that made any sense, but
I know what you're saying. And yes,
it's like
you
my fault. It's like
Yeah.
an awesome person, like everything else is great, but they don't thrive in an environment that I have at my office. So could you?
Yeah, they're not going to be awesome. They're not going to be awesome with you if what you have isn't what they need. And you can use the simplest example too, which is remote versus not. You run a remote company, and in a conversation, they say, I really thrive on, you know, interacting in one-on-one in an office environment with people. One of our clients' sons, like, turned down 3 jobs. Really nice. It's crazy what these kids are getting paid out of college, by the way. Like 3, like, really nice 6-figure offer positions. I don't know about you guys' first job. Mine was $18,500. And all because he wants to be in an environment. So a candidate was doing that. We want to make sure we're doing that as the employer. And if their disc profile doesn't, you know, for example, you have an outside sales job and you meet a high. For those of you that don't know disc, we'll talk a little bit about it in a few minutes. But so you meet a high, which is an extroverted person that hates the word no, hates letting people down, hates feeling bad, really wants to please. You can't take a high and put them in an outside sales job. Why? What's the hardest part of outside sales? You get rejected all day long. No. I mean, the whole thing is, how many no's do you need before you get to your yes? But it's the biggest mistake people make is, oh, I met this person. He's really friendly. He's so much fun. I'm going to hire him for my outside sales job. He's going to do great. But he's not. Because once he realizes how rejected he's going to get day in and day out, he fails. And then he moves on. Good inside sales hire, but not outside. So it's a clear disqualification. If they don't fit you, the job, or the organization, you can't hire them. Even if you like them. Build a whole new company for them. Try that.
Hey, Arif.
Yes.
Question on that. What if you're hiring them to be a change agent in your organization to change your culture to be more like they are?
Say it again. I want to make sure I heard it right.
Like, you're going to hire someone who has a different preferred office style, office environment, because you want your company to morph into something that looks more like them and where they came from or where they excel.
You're going to have to be careful. You would have to be careful who that person was, right? So the only person that can really handle that in a big way, where they're actually changing the culture of an environment, is going to be someone who at least has a decent level of D. Because they're going to have to be able to take all of the rejection that they get trying to change the culture. You try to bring an I in, right? That same I who's doing outside sales, and say change the culture. You know what the I is actually going to do? They're actually going to merge into the culture, because that's how they'll get accepted. So it's a particular. You're looking for a particular person to achieve that, right? So if you don't find that particular style, then you shouldn't bring them. All right. This is fun, and then we're going to do a little breakout. So we talk a lot about this, but we've never applied it specifically to interview. And so again, in your tool folder, I think I'm going to say all day, you're going to see these 4 pages of disc profiles. So can I get a show of hands of when I say disc? Is there anybody in the room that has no clue what I'm talking about when I talk about this? Okay. Carol? Sorry, so D, dominant, right? That's the first one. That's the first starter. So, when we're looking to interview, now we're past the screening. So you've done your screening. You now have an assessment of the person. It's in front of you. How do I use this in an interview in an effective way to make sure that I'm asking good questions? So I've got, just so you can see how to read it, I've got an above the line, above 50, D that I'm interviewing. So their potential may be that they overstep authority, they're impatient, they don't listen, they're overly direct less aggressive. We want to know, do they know who they are? We're not, just so we're clear, none of these profiles are bad. It's about understanding what your strengths and opportunities are within your profile and making sure that you're able to apply the adjustments you need to in the right situations. So with a D, overly dominant, very goal-oriented, not so concerned about people's feelings, right? They will run a human over to achieve their goal because the goal is what the most important thing is. Any D's in the room? Yes, I know we have D's in the room. So we're looking for that in this conversation. And here's a couple of good questions, and this is what we were trying to give you guys, some tools and some good questions on how to handle that interview. So here's a good question for a raging high D. Tell me about a time when a customer could not comprehend what you were trying to tell them. How did you handle the situation, and what was the outcome? So what's the raging D going to say? I hung up on him. What? Yeah, right? Whatever it's going to be, you're going to look for how they handle it. You're not going to get a D to say, well, you know what I did? I really slowed down, and I grabbed their hand. No, but if you can get them to, demonstrate a little bit that shows they needed to change, good. Now you know there's a level of awareness. But there's plenty of D's you'll interview that'll be like, yeah, I told them to fuck off. I went to the next customer. Like, that happens, right? Like, for real. And now you know, they just said that in an interview, they're going to carry that forward into your workplace, and you want to be aware of it. And not hire them. Describe a work experience where you strongly disagreed with your manager or coworker, and tell me how you handled it. Great question for a D. You're really looking for the details of here. By the way, I could use the same answer I did for the last one on what they did with their coworker, right? But I won't curse that much. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single one of these because that's not the point. The point is actually for you guys to get a little practice on it. So for those of you who've never been here before, we do some role playing, we do some interacting. That's part of what we like to do to get people meeting one another. And so what we have here, so this is where you are going to need your phones, your computers to kind of pull up the disk guide. You're going to see there's two ways to use it. So D, above line, and then what we have is D below line. And let's talk about this just for 1 second. So D below line. So I'm going to use the outside sales because it's a really good example. You have somebody that you're hiring for your outside sales position. And you notice that their DISC score on the D scale is at 30. On a scale of 100, right? For just a reminder. Now, if I saw that and I knew you were hiring for an outside salesperson, I would immediately just say, probably not a good idea. But if you want to do the interview, do it. But go here, right? Tell me about a time you had to tell a customer something you knew they would disagree with, and how did you handle it? The standard low D is going to say, I didn't tell them all. Right? I avoided it at all costs. Whatever that may be. You might want to position this question to talk a little bit about sales, if you were focused on the sales, but follow the theme. Describe a time where you had to start a new project with little assistance or direction. How did you handle the situation? Right? So trying to hone in on what that particular behavior profile is, above and below the line. And this works for D, I, S, and C. So again, D, that's a dominant profile, very goal-oriented. I, we are all about people and humans. We want people to like us, we need to be around them, we need to spend time. These are all above the line descriptors. S, this is your steady profile. We still like people. We don't care as much whether they like us, we just want to be a part of the team. We want to be a part of something. We want to feel like we're contributing. We also move at a bit of a slower pace than the other does. Right? I'm not saying they're turtles, just there's a different pace difference between an I and an S. An I goes 100 miles an hour, the S runs behind them and picks up all the stuff they drop. Right? That's kind of how that plays out. And then C, right? So this is your compliant individual. Rule follower, black and white, sees things a certain way, right? There's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and that's ultimately what we want to have. Okay? So it's expounded in the table. Right? Got a proud C up here. Right? Now, for those of you who have not had extensive conversation here, what makes a great team? All of them. What do most people do? Hire what they're attracted to. What does that do? Yeah, it's a lopsided team, depending on who you hire. So if you fill a whole company, no offense, Susie, or any other C, you fill a whole company with C's, right? You're gonna move like right? That's towards your goal. Fill a whole company with D's and I's, it's gonna be shit everywhere, right? Nothing's gonna get done, and we're gonna have a problem. So loading it with what you need for right player, right time, right seed, really, really important. So what we want to do now, stage your tables. Whoever is in a position where they're really thinking about hiring, like right now, it should be most of you, but go ahead and raise your hand and say, you don't have to do it with me, but I'll go ahead and be the interviewer. Two people at the table, choose a disc profile, either the one you are or one that you're comfortable with. Use the guides that we gave you. And we'd like to see 2 people get to interview, and 2 people, everybody else observe. The interview's goal, I want you to do 2 things. 1, use the disqualifying questions, okay? Which you're going to find in your toolkit. So those are those 5 questions that we talked about first. And then the second one is following the disc guide to really kind of hone in and just work on it. The interviewee, your job is not to make it easy. Don't make it ridiculously hard. But the interviewee, whatever the profile is that you're choosing, be the profile. Don't make it simple for the person, because the idea here is we want to get some work done, we want to get some, make some progress here. Then we're going to come back and we share a little bit. My suggestion, because it's beautiful out, is if one table wants to go outside and do it outside, you can. Some people stay here, some people can go over there. Spread out, you got 10 minutes for each, and then we're going to come back and share. Paul.
As the interviewee, do we have self-awareness of our type?
Yes. Well, that's a choice, actually. So Paul asked, do we have awareness of our type? So I want you to be that type. You can decide whether you have awareness of it or not, or the extreme level, right? Of what that awareness may be.